Hi everyone. So it's Natalie. I'm back today with a review of the Tree Spirit Oracle cards and book set. So I started this the other day and I really became irritated with how tedious it was. I had started by wanting to do like a walkthrough of the entire deck and realized that was pointless. The reviewing process just became overly long. So as soon as I'm done with the babbling, we'll get through this. At any rate, this is the box that they came in. It's a really lovely little box. Not a, tuck box, not especially durable, I think in the long term, which is also why I decided to rebox them and rehouse them in their own little treasure chest box, which you can see here. Just got it on Amazon. It was a very inexpensive little box, and it's not brilliant, but it definitely works, and it definitely fits them, as you can see, as well as their two little die that come with it. I have not yet learned how to use the die with the Oracle, so that's something I'll hopefully learn at some other point. Right now I'm really much more interested in using the deck itself. It does come with a little booklet. The booklet is okay. It gives you, your cheat, the cheat of information about what each of the cards is. It gives their keyword, and then it gives a little phrase that goes with it. It goes through all of the cards. It does give the layouts. It does give you the possibility of looking at how to use these with clients. I just realized reading this, something I missed before. He says here, oracular energies are strongest when there is mutual need, the desire of the questioner to know a way forward in life, and the desire of the reader to help provide that information. So he does, show that dynamic. He also, gives you a sense of what the yes and the no cards are within the deck, which I thought was really very helpful. And I love this. Mistakes don't happen. Very funny. If by mistake more than one card is drawn from the pack, read both of them as a single answer. It's interesting. I had forgotten that this was here, and this is going to be part of the review. I have had a couple of those readings for myself in the last couple of weeks, and one in particular was just remarkable. At any rate, he gives the different spreads he recommends. There's a 3-card spread, a 4 levels spread, problem-solving spread, 3 worlds spread, and about reading his reverse cards, reading the cards in reverse. There are far more of these in the book than what you find here in this little booklet, and the book itself is worthy of its own thing. It is packed full of extraordinary information, which I'll have to take a different camera angle to try and work out, so I won't do that just yet. This is the little sort of the deck oracle card, I guess. It's card sort of as its own standalone. It doesn't have a definition. It's just sort of like, here's this deck. So anyway, I put those 2 little items here at the back of the box. Here are the cards. They're just exquisite. I mean, the stock for these is incredibly thick, as you can see. So when you're looking at them, they're very, it is a really hefty little deck. It's only 75 cards. If you're a tarot reader, you're used to 78. So the number is fine. It's just that we're not used to the thickness. I do not even attempt to rifle shuffle these cards at all. I strictly stick with like overhanded shuffles, things that are very easy to do. It is a real delight to shuffle them, and it's a delight to handle them. And at this point, they really do feel like old friends. So something I want to say, I've got, I'm going to put a few of these aside because they're part of my my little in-depth review here. But, you know, suffice it to say, as you're looking at these, the colors are very bright. Each card has, you know, the number at the bottom, and then, you know, a really pretty in-depth painting and glyph for each card. Some of them, you know, obviously are like very simple, and other ones feel a lot more intricate, like number 28 over here. But they're so different from one another. And with some of them, they definitely feel exactly like the tree. So when you read like what tree they are, it just makes sense. One of those in particular that really feels like it makes sense. And I'm starting to get to know these a lot faster than I would have expected. I can look through them like I know this one's walnut, or I can remember that it's a tree I didn't remember the name of. They're so beautiful. Like that's a blackthorn, that's yew. Oop, they're jumping out of the deck at us, desperate to tell us all kinds of wonderful information. Oh, here it is, holly. To me, that says holly. It looks a lot like the leaf, and, you know, there's the leaf outline and the berry and, you know, the colors, and it's, I mean, that just feels absolutely spot on. Anyway, that's all a very, you know, this one's ginkgo, 46. This one is the, I believe that's elder tree. I mean, it's, yeah, they go in pretty quickly. You start to really learn them. Hemlock here is 58. I'm amazed at how quickly actually I'm beginning to learn the names. It's been a really exciting process. So something I should really offer about the way that he has designed the symbols, he says in his book, each design is a summing up, a translation, a symbolic rendering of the living dance of that tree. It is the expression of a tree's unique creativity, of how it manifests and molds the elements of the universe in its own way. These images have emerged from particular times set aside for focus and contemplation on each tree. So, and then he goes further. He says, some images appeared straight away in front of the mind's eye, while others took time and effort to cajole into a fixed shape. And he does say that there is, of course, other images that could represent a tree. These are just his representations of trees. And I have to say, I mean, more often than not, they do, like, once I really get a sense of, like, what the name of the tree is, like, for this one, this is a yew tree, Y-E-W-U. That feels right. And I can't exactly tell you why, but it does feel right. There are a few in here that haven't immediately clicked or connected. But that aside, I have to say, every time I pick up this deck, it does feel like coming into contact with an old friend or with somebody that I really love and care about and trust, and that or a mentor. Yeah, a mentor even. Someone that trusts and cares about me and wants me to do well. And one way in which that made itself clear right away, even though, just found that little speck of something there, even though I was hoping to build that relationship with the cards, something that happened right away as I picked them up and had that sense of like, oh, these are like old friends. I handled each card and looked at it very carefully, and they were kind of bent when I first got them, so I was kind of also just massaging them out of that shape and into a more flat shape, which of course I feel like has really been worth the effort. They've really, you know, straightened up beautifully. I went ahead and did my first shuffle and pulled a card and came up with number 70. And number 70, I'm just cheating here and looking through my book. So that's what all the shuffling noise is. This is the silver fir tree, and its keyword is exaltation. And it's about connection to universal energies. How amazing is that? And that's, of course, like, that's why I got the deck. Actually, I should probably look at them in here so you can see them with me. Yeah, here we go. Exaltation, connection to universal energies. And that was just such a beautiful introduction to this deck. To get a card like that was really meaningful. And it very much sealed the deal with like how I feel about it. So the following day, same thing. I picked them up and decided to shuffle them and sit with them and be with them, which was beautiful. And I pulled number 15. Number 15 is Plum, and it's empowerment and belief in oneself. And of course, like, it really just fit that particular day. And again, it was just very much part of like introducing myself to this deck and trying to get to know like who are these, what are these energies? Who are these energies? How do they function? How do they want to work with me? I've spoken a lot about my connection with different, with different plants and, different trees and flowers. And it really does change your life to spend a lot of time doing that. I don't know how else to put it, but it did make it a very important thing for me to figure out, like, how do I work with these energies and what do I do? Because, especially in the winter when they're very dormant, you feel it, and you kind of start to feel alone. The connection, the ability to pick up leaves or flowers and have a very immediate connection is not as easy. And then, like it is at the moment, it's about 12 degrees outside. So just sitting outside or being outside with the trees that are dormant is harder to do. So the timing for this felt really important because it's like I don't have my friends with me as easily and as readily. And then the third day that I was working with them, right before I thought, okay, I'm going to start going more in depth, I pulled number 64. And this was just like, literally, I'm just going to draw a card just to see. Like, let's just see what happens. Which is often how I start working with cards. And it came up, number 64 is White Beam Tree, and its keyword is otherworld, so it's contact with other realities. And again, just the three of these cards, like 3 days in a row, exaltation, empowerment, and otherworld, was just so powerful. And really, it just gave me the confidence I needed to really start hearing, like, okay, what do you want me to know? And what do you want to tell me? So there we go. That was the introduction. I had a reading. So then what started to happen? He mentions, like, if more, there are no mistakes. Where was that page? There are no mistakes. Or mistakes don't happen. If by mistake more than one card is drawn from the pack, read both of them as a single answer. So I spent the day, Wednesday last week, in my storage space. And of course, when you're pulling out a storage space and reviewing your whole life, you come out with all kinds of stuff. And when I came home, I really just wanted to talk to my buddies and see what they had to tell me. And it was so fascinating because the whole purpose in going back was really just to pull out everything. It's so much of my past, and a lot of it's really hard. It's a lot of the stuff from the last 10 years of my life. And last 10 to 12, we'll say 10 to 12 years of my life. And it was a particular chunk of that, part of my life that is really not the easiest to face. But I came up with these two they came out attached, I think that, like this. So I pulled 75 and thought, whoopee, I haven't seen that one yet. And then realized very quickly that 6 was attached to it. So 75 is juniper. So it's ancestors, and the phrase there, the past molding the future. And really, when you go into depth about the meaning of this card, and the larger book has, a full 2-page spread on every single card that offers so much depth, so much detail in terms of understanding what that message might mean, where it's coming from, how it manifests itself is remarkable. But it very quickly was about, taking information and things from the past that are either ancestral or literally just from your past, and figuring out what you want to take from it and how that is going to allow you to mold your future or to bring you closer to your future. And then, what is that telling you? And that was very much the whole process of the entire day, was that. And it brought, there were a lot of uncomfortable, upsetting things that I found in storage that, I don't necessarily really want to talk about here. But, that were things that, I've spent many years kind of integrating and working with, but maybe wasn't entirely done with yet, and didn't realize it until I saw the stuff. So, no, it wasn't so much like, hey, this is going to come up or this is going to happen, but it felt more like, here's where you are right now. I see you. You're not alone. We're here. We're with you. And then number 6 was an interesting one. They're from either end of the deck. Number 6 is, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly. No, where is it? Oh, no, I will. Number 6 is Pittospora, and it's about choice and alternative routes. And again, when you pull out the big book, there was a lot of information in that book that was about, how do you, you've got 2 paths. You can make 2 different choices. How do you want to use those choices? What are the choices that will help you to move forward in the direction you want to go in? And what are the things that, are going to be less helpful? And just figuring out how to negotiate those. And the 2 of these together, that they came out at the same time like this, really was maybe not as meaningful to me as I'm able to verbalize, or maybe is not as easily verbalized as it was meaningful. It was deeply meaningful. I really suddenly was like, whoa, I don't feel like I'm being given advice. I feel like I'm being told, hey, I see you. I'm right here. You're not alone. You're not by yourself. And when a deck starts to speak to me that way, it's been a solid 10 years at least since I've done any form of cartomancy. So, any form of working with tarot or oracle decks. It's been a long, long time, but it's, of course, like extremely familiar to just pick them back up and work with them. But when a deck begins to reflect back to me in that kind of gentle, supportive, loving way, I know that it's the right one. It's just very apparent and clear to me that it was a wise choice. So that is really, it was important to me to share that as a way of reviewing this deck, because I think, when it seems anyway, from what I've watched in the tarot community, we're all looking at different things and different qualities. And sometimes what we're looking at, and I'm definitely a person that does this, we're looking at the art. We're there as much for the art and as much for interpretation of different concepts and ideas as we are there for the wisdom and intelligence that's inherent therein. But this particular deck, the art is very, very obtuse, and as intentional as it is, it's not as immediate to a reader maybe as other forms would be. It's not concrete. This is not a concrete way of describing things. It is a very intuitive and yet a very deeply understood way of describing things. And again, I feel that this particular author just, he gets it at that level. It comes to him at that level. And so when you read his book, when you work with his deck, you're not working so much with an artist that is interested in making art, so much as you are working with an artist who has worked with his material. Okay. In this case, we're looking at someone who actively picks up wood and deadfall and shapes it and sees magic within something so easily bypassed and unnoticed that he's able to see its inherent beauty, its inherent wisdom, and then find a way to turn that not only into art, but to translate its spirit into something that can communicate, if you're willing to go that distance. So it is taking something very ordinary and easily overlooked and finding the magical and the beautiful within that. And finding a way to translate that information and make it accessible so that more people can get in touch with it, can know it better. And I also have the sense, too, that he's not saying that this is only stuff that you can find in my deck. This is stuff that you can find simply through engaging it and getting to know it better and allow it to shape and reshape, redefine your relationship with each of these energies so that you maybe come up with your own vocabulary, your own way of knowing and understanding. You know, we may get to a point... I may get to a point where this glyph for this particular tree, which escapes me at the moment, but it felt like the right energy. But anyway, so that becomes something different. You know, maybe I would have to redefine it another way. What is that one? Number 20, it's cherry. It's healing or the need to repair. It's just such a beautiful system. So that's where this is where Simon Lilly is coming from in his cards and with his work. And so when you order his deck, which is not cheap, it is expensive. It is $100 for the deck and book set combined. And I have the book sort of right over here, out of camera angle. It is $100 to get both. But as you know, if what you're trying to do is access those deeper levels, he's got everything that you need to begin doing that and to begin undertaking that process through the use of this oracle. So yeah, I highly recommend it. I think it's remarkable. I'm going to look a bit here and change our angle so that I can show you the book. And as you can see, you know, it is, I was just marking my place there. It's got, you know, the quick reference, the one that you find in the little book. It gives you all of the stuff. And then, you know, each one of the trees gets its own 2-page spread in here. And it is extensive and it is deep. And it is immediately accessible, you know, and very simple, and yet, yeah, very deep. He does give advice on how to use the die. I have not done that yet. Let's see, the Tree Spirit Oracle. So there's, you know, you would use the die, you know, in this format. And I do believe he puts out all the glyphs. Yeah, so that you could use the symbol page to read the oracle. So you don't necessarily have to buy the deck. And you know, as I've been reading it, I'm really bad. I do have to write all over the insides of books, and you know, something beautiful that he says, that has definitely been my experience too, is that paying attention to the senses is one of the best ways to get to know the spirits of the trees. Quiet observation and neutral curiosity, together with the closeness of the tree, effortlessly alter our level of consciousness so that very profound, but often not very easily definable, links can be forged. Definitely has been my process. And I think when that starts to happen to you, you can't undo it. You begin to realize that you're dealing with living beings, you know, living sources of wisdom and intelligence. And it really changes the way you engage with plants. Like I really can't abuse them anymore. It's definitely changed things. At any rate, yeah, it's a great resource. I can't say enough, obviously, about this deck and book set and about Simon's work. I mean, this is, it's remarkable. And again, like with with my, there it goes, with my bowl, I haven't spent as much time with it yet. Reading the runes and reading these cards is a very different discussion. Runes and Celtic Ogham and so on, they're very, very different. It's a very different system. But he's working with all of them in terms of the scope of his work. And I would also say too, I mean, I'm not a pagan, but I would say that this would definitely be if you are a pagan. I mean, I forgive my ignorance if I'm getting this completely wrong. I would say that probably working with these kinds of instruments would be, I mean, these would be amazing tools. I think you're probably ultimately working with spirit energies and spirit, energies that are of plants and trees and of the earth. This is an extraordinary resource for being able to tap into that and know it and understand it better. So, I guess my paganism is unofficial. It's not really, it's not an intended paganism, but it's just sort of one that's come about from hanging out in nature for long enough. I think it's going to turn all of us into pagans at some point, simply through the virtue of being in nature. I don't know how it could be any differently unless you're completely asleep and disinterested, but at any rate, it is a blessing to talk to all of you, and thank you for watching.